In this lesson, we're going to look at how to subtract signed numbers. We've talked a lot about how to add signed numbers, but what if you don't have a plus sign between the two numbers? What if you actually have a minus sign between them? Well, it's easy, but we're not going to learn another set of rules for subtraction. What we're going to do instead is learn how to convert a subtraction problem into an addition problem. This is very similar to what we did with division, with fractions, when we learned how to change a division problem into a multiplication problem. And this is the same type of idea at work here. Instead of learning how to subtract, let's learn how to change a subtraction problem into an addition problem, because we already know how to add. There are two steps here. The first step is change your minus sign to a plus sign, and the next step, which must go with it, is to change the sign of the next number. You may not do one without the other. They must both be done at the same time. So if you only do step one, you have not changed your problem into an addition problem. You have simply written a new, different problem. So both steps have to go together. And we're going to do lots of examples to kind of get this set in your mind. So in each of these, we will convert from subtraction to addition, and then we will simplify or add the two numbers together. And our first problem is 10 minus 7. Now this is an easy one. I know that you already know 10 minus 7 is 3, and you don't need a bunch of new rules to tell you that. But I want you to see how this process works. If we want to change subtraction to addition, I'm going to copy the problem over so I still keep my original. Now you don't have to copy it over if you don't want to, but I wanted to leave the original one for your notes. So here I've got a fresh copy of the problem. I'm going to change the minus to a plus, and I'm going to change the sign of the next number, which is currently positive, but it needs to be changed to negative. So 10 minus 7 and 10 plus negative 7 are the same problem, but this problem we can use our addition rules on. And our addition rules say subtract the two numbers and use the sign of the larger number. So in this case, positive 3. Now I'm not saying that you need to take an easy problem like this and complicate it this way, but I'm saying that whenever you have a subtraction that's not immediately obvious to you, this is a way to figure it out. So new example, negative 6 minus 5. If I want to do this subtraction, what I'm going to do is leave the negative 6 alone, change the minus sign in between them to a plus sign, and change the sign of the next number. And so negative 6 plus negative 5 is negative 11. See how much clearer it is, how much easier it is to see how our rules apply when we have an addition problem. With the negative sign, it's a little confusing sometimes when you're getting started. I remember getting all wound up and thinking, wait a minute, is this a minus or a negative? And I really confused myself. But if you will change your problem from a subtraction to an addition, it makes it clearer to see how to apply the two rules that we know. Right? New problem, 10 minus negative 7. So let's change the minus to a plus, and let's change the sign of the next number. So the negative 7 will now change to positive 7. And now that we've done that, we can clearly see these are both positive numbers, so we can add them and use their sign. So positive 17 is the answer. Oops, forgot to pause that one. Let's take negative 6 minus negative 5, and of course we'll have negative 6 We'll change the minus to a plus, and we'll change the sign of the next number. Now you can see that I have a negative and a positive. Their signs are different, and so we'll subtract them and use the sign of the larger number. Okay? More. And, you know, it won't hurt at all for you to learn to take some shortcuts here or make some connections. And don't be so bound down by the rules that you can't use your common sense too. Alright, so this minus, I'm going to change minus to plus here, and I'm going to change the sign of my next number. So negative 3 plus negative 5 is going to make negative 8. Alright, now change on this one negative 17 minus negative 4. I'm going to change the minus to a plus, change the sign of the next number. So now the difference between these is 13, and I'll use the sign of the larger, which is negative, so negative 13. Negative 2 minus negative 10, change the minus to a plus, change the sign of the next number, and now they're different signs, so find the difference between them, which is 8, and use the sign of the larger number, which is positive, so positive 8. Okay, 3 minus 14. Change the minus to a plus, change the sign of the next number. Now, they're different signs, so subtract them. The difference is 11, and use the sign of the larger number, so it's negative 11. Negative 6 minus negative 8. Change the minus to a plus, and change the sign of the next number. So now I can see there are different signs. The difference between them is 2, and the larger number is positive. So positive 2. Now I would encourage you, let's take a little closer look to what we see here. And I notice that every time there's a minus between the two numbers and nothing else, just minus a positive number, it ends up being plus negative. See, minus 14 became plus negative 14. Minus 5 became plus negative 5. If I look back over here, minus 7 became plus negative 7. So one way to look at it is to say that minus a number always becomes plus the negative of that number. And that is true. So you may get to a point, in fact I hope you will eventually get to a point, where you don't even need to rewrite this, or you can just look at this problem and see it as negative 3 plus negative 5. You see how much that would speed things up for you? 3 plus negative 14. And then if you can think it that way, you don't spend so much time writing and trying to think of your rules. But this comes after lots and lots of practice. So that's one connection I want you to make. The other thing is, look at all the problems that say minus negative. They all turned into plus positive. Minus negative became plus positive. And minus negative here became plus positive. So there's no mystery here. Only two things can happen. You either have minus a number, which will become plus negative, or you have minus a negative number, which will become plus positive. And there, those are the only two you can have. So I would encourage you just lots of repetition and lots of thinking about it will help you get this down pat. And if you can get good at this, then you can go a long way in algebra, and you can't go very far without knowing your sign rules. So really, this is one of those foundational things that you absolutely have to get down pat if you're going to be successful later.